The transport ship cut through the upper atmosphere of Seraph Prime like a blade through mist. Commander Rian Vale stood near the window, his reflection cast against the alien sky, watching twin moons drift above the shimmering surface of the royal capital. Below him sprawled the heart of the Seraph Dominion. Crystal towers, mirrored courtyards, and streets glowing with soft bioluminescent veins of energy. It looked more like a dream than a city. But Rian knew better. Dreams didn't have barbed borders and watchtowers at every corner. They called it a peace mission. He called it exile. "Commander Vale," the pilot said through the comms, his tone clipped, military standard. "We're entering restricted airspace. Royal clearance confirmed. Touchdown in 3 minutes." Rian nodded, even though the pilot couldn't see him. His hand tightened around the datapad in his grasp, its edges digging into his palm. The Galactic Council's insignia pulsed faintly on the pad. His orders, digitally sealed and irrevocable. "Guard Princess Aelira of the Seraph Dominion." Just 6 words. But those 6 words had torn him from his post on the frontier and thrown him into the alien heart of what used to be humanity's greatest enemy. He had fought against the Seraph once, years ago, before the peace treaties. He'd seen their ships burn, their people surrender, and their leaders swear eternal truce. He never thought he'd be serving in their courts. When the transport finally landed, the airlock hissed open with a slow metallic sigh, and Rian stepped out onto polished marble. The landing pad shimmered like liquid light, surrounded by guards in armor that looked more ceremonial than practical. Sleek, white, and covered in faint silver etchings that pulsed like veins. Their eyes glowed faintly with that eerie seraph blue. They didn't speak a word as he passed. At the edge of the platform, a tall woman in black robes awaited him. Her expression was carved from stone. "Commander Vale," she greeted, voice cold as glass. "I am Archon Saris, head of the princess's personal security." Rian gave a curt nod. "Archon, I was told to report directly to the royal command." "That will not be necessary," she said. "You report to me, and I report to Her Grace." There was a subtle stress on those 2 words, Her Grace, the kind of reverence that made Rian uneasy. He'd seen soldiers worship generals before. It never ended well. Saris turned, her robes whispering against the smooth floor. "Follow me. She has requested your presence tonight." "Already?" Rian frowned. "I just arrived." "Then you are already late." The corridors of the palace were a maze of light and shadow, filled with columns of crystal and streams of silver mist that moved like living breath. Every corner hummed softly, as if the walls themselves were alive. Rian could feel the air vibrating against his skin, charged with unseen power. He'd been briefed on Seraph bioarchitecture. Their buildings were grown, not built, but seeing it in person made his military training feel small and outdated. This wasn't just technology. It was evolution. They stopped before a pair of tall, iridescent doors that shimmered with layers of color shifting like oil on water. Saris placed her palm against them, and the doors opened silently. "Enter," she said. "She will see you alone." Rian hesitated. "No guards." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Do not question the princess's wishes." He stepped through. The chamber beyond was vast, dimly lit by floating orbs of light that drifted lazily through the air. A wide balcony overlooked the city below, where wind carried the faint sound of seraph hymns from distant towers. And there she was. Princess Aelira stood at the edge of the balcony, her back to him. Her hair, white with silver strands, floated slightly in the soft breeze. Her gown shimmered like liquid glass, and for a moment, Rian wondered if she was even real. "Commander Vale," she said softly without turning around. Her voice carried an echo, like 2 tones layered together. "You came sooner than expected." Rian straightened. "My orders were clear, Your Highness. I am to ensure your safety." She turned then, and he froze. Her eyes, luminescent blue with faint gold rings around the pupils, locked onto his. For a fraction of a second, something sharp and electric passed through him, like a static charge hitting bone. Aelira tilted her head, studying him. "You're human." He blinked. "That's correct. You carry war in your eyes." Her gaze softened slightly. And yet, you stand in peace. Rian didn't answer. He wasn't sure what to say to that. She stepped closer, her movements fluid and unhurried. The glow of the room dimmed as if responding to her presence. Tell me, Commander, do you believe peace is real? Or is it just an intermission between wars? He swallowed hard. Depends who's asking, Your Highness. Then I am asking. Rian met her gaze again. Peace is real when both sides stop pretending to want it. Alira smiled faintly, something sad and distant. A soldier's answer. She circled him slowly, her footsteps making no sound on the polished floor. They told me you volunteered for this assignment. I didn't. Her smile widened just a little. Then fate volunteered you. She stopped in front of him, close enough that he could see faint lines glowing just beneath her skin. Tiny streams of light pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. He'd seen holograms more human than this. Yet somehow, she felt more alive than anyone he'd ever met. Tell me, Commander, she whispered. Do you believe in fate? Rian almost laughed. I believe in orders, not prophecies. Ah! She stepped even closer, her voice soft as silk. Then perhaps I should give you one. Before he could respond, she lifted a hand and placed it gently on his chest. His body tensed. Her touch was cold, but beneath it, something sparked. An echo deep in his mind, a flash of light behind his eyes. For an instant, he saw something impossible. A battlefield covered in fire, a woman who looked like her, exactly like her, bleeding in his arms as he carried her toward a collapsing sky. He stumbled back, breath caught in his throat. What was that? He demanded. Alira's gaze held his, calm and unreadable. A memory. Whose? Ours. Rian stared at her, speechless. The logical part of his mind screamed impossible. But the look in her eyes wasn't madness. It was recognition. Your Highness, he said, forcing his voice steady. If this is some kind of, do not speak, she interrupted softly. They listen in every room, even this one. She turned her head slightly toward the ceiling. The walls have ears and loyalty. He hesitated. Then why bring me here? Because I needed to see you. Her eyes gleamed brighter for a moment. I needed to be sure. Sure of what? That it's really you. The words hit him harder than he expected. Me? She nodded slowly, stepping closer again. You've guarded me before, Commander Vale. In another life. The room fell silent. Only the wind moved between them, carrying the distant hum of the city. Rian stood there, caught between disbelief and something dangerously close to fear. I think you're mistaken, he said quietly. Alira smiled again, almost tenderly. Perhaps, but fate rarely makes mistakes. Before he could reply, the lights in the chamber flickered, then dimmed. Somewhere in the palace, alarms began to echo. A low, resonant pulse that made the glass walls tremble. Alira's expression hardened instantly. They're early, she whispered. Go, Commander. Now. Who's early? He demanded, stepping forward. But before she could answer, the balcony lights flared white, and a shadow passed over the city. Massive, silent, and fast. Something was descending from orbit. Alira's hand brushed his again, her voice calm but urgent. Whatever happens, remember what you saw. Remember me. And as the first shockwave rolled through the palace, Rian realized that his assignment had just turned into something far beyond duty. It had become destiny. The alarms had echoed through the royal palace for nearly 10 minutes before they suddenly stopped. Just silence. It was the kind of silence that didn't feel like peace. It felt like someone holding their breath. Commander Rian Vale stood in the middle of the observation corridor, still half expecting the next wave of sound or an explosion that never came. The marble floor beneath him vibrated faintly, like the palace itself was thinking. Stand down, Archon Saris ordered from the far end of the hall. Her voice was too calm for what had just happened. It was a false atmospheric breach. Routine malfunction in the orbital array. The situation is contained. Contained. That word again. The same word she used for everything that didn't make sense. Rian watched her for a long moment before replying. That didn't sound like a malfunction, Archon. That sounded like an attack. Her eyes flicked to him, sharp as razors. Commander Vale, you are here to protect Her Grace, not question the Dominion's internal protocols. I can't protect what I don't understand. Ceres's expression didn't change. Then understand this, you are alive because she asked for you. And her asking is not something that happens twice. She turned on her heel, robes sweeping the floor as she walked away. Return to your quarters. You'll be briefed in the morning. Rian watched her disappear into the shimmering corridors, her outline fading into the palace's living walls. He didn't like this place. Everything about it felt wrong, too quiet, too controlled. Even the guards looked like statues instead of soldiers. He found his assigned quarters 3 levels above the throne gallery. A room too lavish for a human officer but too hollow to feel like home. A glass table held a meal that was already going cold, alien fruits and glimmering liquids that looked more decorative than edible. The ceiling pulsed with faint light, mimicking a heartbeat. He sat on the edge of the bed, boots still on, and stared at his orders again. Guard the princess. The simplicity of it mocked him. Guard her from what? Or from who? He replayed the scene from earlier in his mind. The way she'd looked at him, the strange light under her skin, that impossible flash of memory. His mind wanted to call it stress. His gut knew better. Outside, the twin moons had moved higher, painting the palace balconies in soft silver light. Somewhere in the distance, faint mechanical noises hummed, like machines whispering to each other. Then he heard it. A soft, hesitant knock on his door. 3 taps. Then silence. Rian stood, his hand automatically reaching for the sidearm holstered on his belt. Identify yourself. No answer. Just another faint knock. Quieter this time, almost desperate. He crossed the room in 2 strides and touched the door console. The light blinked green, and the door slid open with a soft hiss. Standing in the hallway was Princess Aelira. Her silver gown was gone. She wore a loose robe that shimmered faintly with motion, almost invisible against her pale skin. Her hair hung loose, strands glowing faintly in the moonlight. But what struck him most was her expression. Fear. Real fear. Your Highness? He said, lowering his weapon immediately. What are you? Close the door. Her voice trembled. He obeyed without thinking. The moment the door sealed, she pressed her back against it, her chest rising and falling with shallow breaths. They're listening everywhere, she whispered. But not here. This room isn't connected to the palace core yet. Rian frowned. Connected? You mean surveillance? She nodded slightly, her eyes darting toward the ceiling. Everything alive in this place listens. The walls, the floors, even the air vents. But your quarters are new, grown last month. The core hasn't linked it yet. He didn't like the way she said grown. He took a cautious step toward her. Your Highness, what's going on? What was that alert earlier? She looked up at him, eyes shining faintly in the dim light. They were testing something, she said softly. Something they shouldn't. He waited, but she didn't elaborate. Instead, she moved toward the center of the room, barefoot, her steps silent. The robe she wore shimmered faintly as she turned her back to him. Do you want to see what I am protecting them from? She asked. Rian hesitated. Your Highness. Please, she said quietly. No titles tonight. He said nothing, but the weight of her tone made him obey. She pulled the robe down from her shoulders, and for a moment he forgot how to breathe. Across her back ran a network of thin, glowing lines, scars, but not normal ones. They pulsed softly with blue and white light, tracing intricate patterns like circuitry beneath her skin. Some were old and faded, others looked fresh, still healing, the edges faintly red. They did this to you? He asked quietly. She nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. They said it would make me stronger, that it was my duty as heir to the Dominion. Stronger for what? Aelira turned, eyes glistening. For war. Rian felt his stomach twist. I thought the war was over. She laughed softly, bitterly. Wars never end. They just changed names. He wanted to ask more, but she looked so fragile standing there in the half-light that he couldn't. He had seen soldiers break under interrogation and civilians shatter from fear, but he had never seen a princess of an empire tremble like this. "What do you mean they want to make you a weapon?" he asked finally. Alira walked toward the window and stared out at the glowing city below. "The Dominion is dying," she said. "Our energy cores are fading. Our ships grow weaker every year." But then the scientists found something buried deep in the archives. Data from the first contact wars. Your people left traces in our genetic systems. Human code. Fragments from ancient experiments. Rian's chest tightened. "You're saying they're rewriting me," she said simply, "turning my blood into a key that can control human-made technology. If they succeed, the Dominion will rise again. Every human system will bow to their command." "That's insane." "It's survival," she whispered, "at any cost." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The light from the moons painted her face in pale blue, catching the tears she tried to hide. Rian finally said, "You could tell the council. End this before it starts." She shook her head slowly. "They already know. It was their idea." He stared at her in disbelief. "The Galactic Council? They want balance," she said. "And I'm the scale." Something cold and heavy settled in Rian's chest. Everything he thought he understood, duty, honor, the peace treaty. It all felt like a curtain hiding a darker truth. "What do you want me to do?" he asked quietly. She looked at him then. Really looked, her eyes full of that strange mix of fear and hope. "I want you to see me as I am," she said. "Not as a weapon. Not as a princess. And if I can't, then leave now," she whispered. "Because soon, they'll make me something you'll have to kill." Her words hit like a blade. He took a step toward her. "Alira." But she flinched when he said her name, like hearing it out loud hurt. "Don't," she said softly. "Names make things real. Maybe they should be real." Her lips parted, a tremor of emotion passing across her face, but she didn't speak. For a long time they just stood there. Two enemies who weren't enemies anymore. Two people trapped in a story neither had written. Then the silence shattered. A low hum rose from beneath the floor, deep and mechanical, like a machine awakening. The walls pulsed with light, and Alira's scars flared brighter in response. She gasped, clutching her chest. Rian grabbed her before she fell. "What's happening?" "They found me," she whispered through clenched teeth. "The core. It's trying to read me." The floor split open with a sound like tearing metal. Blue energy surged upward, forming a column of light that surrounded them both. Alira's eyes went wide, glowing with the same light as the beam. "Rian, run." "I'm not leaving you," he shouted over the noise. She looked at him, pain and terror merging into something desperate. "Then we'll both die." The light expanded, swallowing the room in white. And just before everything vanished, he heard her voice, calm and clear in the chaos. "They want to make me a weapon, but I'd rather be free or dead." Then the world went silent again. The palace had never gone dark before, not once in living memory. Yet tonight, as the sky outside flickered with the shimmer of orbital shields, the lights of the alien capital's heart died all at once. Every corridor, every crystal archway, every hovering sentry drone went still. And in the deep silence that followed, the hum began. Started faint like vibration through bone. Then deeper, older, alive. Rian pressed his hand against the steel lattice of the sealed chamber door. "Backup systems should have kicked in by now," he muttered, scanning the touchpad that refused to respond. Across the room, Alira stood near the console, her golden eyes catching what little glow the emergency strips offered. "They have," she said softly. "That hum you hear? That is the backup system." He frowned. "Doesn't sound like a generator." "It isn't." She turned toward him, slow and almost reverent, as though she were listening to something only she could hear. "It's the voice of the first machine." Rian froze. He'd heard that name once, buried in a forbidden archive of human war records, long before Earth had surrendered to the Council of Worlds. The first machine. A legend whispered among engineers and soldiers. Supposedly the final creation of human science before extinction. Something so advanced, so aware, the aliens who found it buried it beneath their own capital rather than destroy it. But it wasn't supposed to exist. "Don't tell me you believe that myth," he said, stepping closer. "I don't believe," Alira whispered. "I remember." The floor trembled slightly beneath their boots. Dust drifted from the cracks in the ceiling. The hum deepened, pulsing like a heartbeat. Rian glanced at his wrist link, no signal. His comms were dead. The chamber doors were magnetically sealed. Someone had locked them in. "You knew this was going to happen," he said quietly. "Didn't you?" Her silence was answer enough. The hum changed tone, splitting into layered vibrations that filled the air. For a second, he thought he heard patterns, modulated pulses like an ancient digital code. Then the sound shifted again, forming syllables. Distorted, mechanical. Rian. His name, spoken through the walls. He went still, every nerve in his body freezing at once. "What did you just?" "I didn't say anything," Alira murmured. Her voice trembled. "It spoke to you." He backed away, scanning the room, trying to find a source. Any source. The sound didn't come from a speaker. Came from everywhere. Through the floor. Through the air itself. Then suddenly a memory hit him. Something buried deep. A briefing months ago. A classified clause in his assignment that didn't fit. The sudden reassignment to this mission. The missing files on Alira's lineage. It wasn't coincidence. It was orchestration. "Why me?" he demanded, turning on her. "Why does it know my name?" She swallowed hard, looking smaller than he'd ever seen her. "Because your blood carries the same sequence as its creators." Rian stared at her, disbelieving. "You're saying I'm related to the people who built this thing?" Alira nodded slowly. "Not just related. Chosen." Before he could respond, the floor beneath them rippled. Metal panels folding inward like petals around a dark, glowing core. The hum rose until it became unbearable, vibrating in his chest cavity. He dropped to one knee, covering his ears. The light in the center expanded, forming a swirling sphere of data streams, fragments of ancient code, human script, alien glyphs. And through it a shape took form. A face. Human. Male. Familiar in a way that clawed at Rian's memory. The face opened its eyes. "Rian Cade," it said, voice like thunder dragged through static. "Welcome home." He staggered back. "You? What are you?" "Designation. First machine. Genesis protocol. Last voice of humanity." The words hit him like a punch. The first machine wasn't a myth, it was a survivor. "Impossible," he whispered. "You should have been destroyed when the war ended?" The machine's tone sharpened. "It never ended, Rian Cade. It was paused. Until you arrived." Alira stepped forward, her expression torn between awe and guilt. "He doesn't know machine. He doesn't remember the inheritance." The machine's glowing eyes flicked toward her. "You have served your function, Alira of Verith. Stand aside." Rian's instincts flared. He moved in front of her automatically. "She's not your target." "Incorrect." The voice deepened, echoing through every surface. "She is the warden. The jailer assigned to keep you from remembering who you are." Rian turned, staring at Alira in disbelief. "Tell me that's not true." Her lips trembled. "It's more complicated than that." The machine's lights flared, cutting through the dark. "Humanity's last code lies dormant within you. The blood key. You were never sent here to negotiate peace, Rian. You were sent here to reactivate me." A cold wave ran through him as the pieces clicked together. Every unexplained clearance. Every silent watcher in the alien court. Every hesitation in Alira's eyes. It wasn't diplomacy, it was bait. He was the trigger. "You used me," he said quietly, his voice shaking with rage. Alira took a step closer, her expression desperate. "I didn't have a choice. They said if I didn't bring you here, the council would erase your world completely. I tried to warn you. You lied to me. The chamber walls vibrated harder, dust falling like snow. The machine's voice rose over the chaos. Choose, Rian Cade. Stand with your kind, or die with theirs. Alira's hand reached out to him, trembling. Please, don't listen to it. It doesn't care about humans. It only wants control. It'll burn every world to rebuild your empire. He stared between her and the glowing core, heart pounding in his chest. The hum was no longer just sound. It was inside him now, whispering fragments of forgotten code. His vision blurred with flashes of old battles, of cities burning under alien skies, of human ships dying bravely in orbit. Then the machine's final words came, soft and cold as winter. The war was never over, Rian. It was waiting for you. The chamber lights flickered once, then died completely. Only the glow from the machine's core remained, pulsing like a heartbeat in the dark. And when Rian turned to Alira, she was gone. The storm over the Seraph capital had not stopped since the blackout. Lightning rolled across the translucent sky domes, illuminating the palace spires like glass spears stabbing the night. Rian stood by the observation window of his quarters, a prisoner in everything but name. His uniform was spotless, his orders clear, but his thoughts were chaos. The machine's voice still echoed in his skull, faint but constant, whispering fragments of a language he somehow understood. The door hissed open behind him. He didn't turn. Only one person in the entire Dominion entered without knocking. Alira stepped in quietly, her presence soft but charged. She wore a hooded cloak, its silver threads glowing faintly in the dark. You haven't slept, she said. Hard to sleep when you start questioning what's real, he muttered. She came closer, until the light from the city touched her face. You think the machine lied to you. I think everyone has. Alira's eyes lowered. Sometimes lies are the only way to protect what's left of the truth. He turned then, anger flashing through him. Protect it from who? From me? From humanity? From them, she whispered. The council. The ones who chained me to a throne I never wanted. She stepped closer still, her voice breaking slightly. Do you know why they chose you to guard me, Rian? He didn't answer, because he wasn't sure he wanted to hear. She reached into her cloak and pulled out a crystal shard, a small device, softly pulsing with blue light. This holds the memory of another life, she said. Yours. And mine. He frowned. That's impossible. We've never. Before he could finish, she pressed the shard to his chest. The light flared, and the room fell away. He wasn't in the palace anymore. He was standing in a battlefield of ash and broken stars. Ships burned in the skies above. He could smell ozone, metal, blood. And before him, a woman knelt in the rubble, her golden eyes full of terror. But she wasn't Alira. Not exactly. Her skin was human, her armor scorched with the insignia of the Terran Vanguard. He knew her name without remembering how. Captain Alara Vance. And he knew the man standing in front of her, because it was him. Or rather, someone wearing his face. A soldier bleeding out, his weapon destroyed, his breath shallow. She reached for him. Don't die here, Rian. Promise me you'll find me again. He smiled weakly, brushing her cheek with his hand. I always do. Then the blast came. The vision shattered like glass. He stumbled back into the present, gasping. The shard fell from Alira's hand and rolled across the floor, dimming. He stared at her. That wasn't a simulation. She shook her head. It was a link, a resonance that carried through lifetimes. The machine didn't create it. We did. Rian's pulse thundered in his ears. That doesn't make sense. You're not human. Not anymore, she said quietly. But I was born from her blood. The Seraphs remade me from fragments they found. Her DNA, her memories, everything they couldn't understand but wanted to control. He could hardly breathe. You're telling me you're a copy of someone who died centuries ago? Not a copy. Her hand brushed his. A continuation. For a moment, he let himself believe it. The impossible pull between them, the way her eyes always seemed to recognize him, even before they'd spoken. It explained everything. And yet, it changed everything too. The door suddenly burst open. 2 royal guards stormed in, armor gleaming, weapons raised. Behind them, the High Chamberlain's voice rang out cold and formal. "Commander Rian Vale, by decree of the Royal Council, you are hereby relieved of duty effective immediately." Rian straightened, the soldier in him taking over. "On what grounds?" "Emotional compromise," the Chamberlain said. "You have formed an unauthorized attachment to the princess. Another officer will assume your post." Alira stepped forward, fury in her voice. "You can't." But the guards moved between them. One gripped Rian's arm, the other reached for his sidearm. He didn't resist, there was no point. The Chamberlain's eyes were like polished stone. "Escort him to the shuttle bay. He departs within the hour." Rian met Alira's gaze, trying to memorize her face one last time. She looked fragile now, like the moment might break her. The guards began to pull him away. "Rian," she whispered, her voice trembling. He paused at the door. "They can replace your post," she said, her eyes glowing faintly again. "But not your destiny." The words hung in the air long after the door closed behind him. As the transport lifted off from the palace platform, Rian looked down at the city lights and felt a strange weight in his chest. The hum of the machine had gone silent, but another pulse had taken its place. Softer, older, and somehow familiar. He didn't know where he was being sent, or if he'd ever see her again. But deep down, he could still feel that invisible thread between them. And for the first time, he realized that maybe the machine hadn't chosen him at all. Maybe she had. The palace was not meant to be breached, especially not by a human stripped of his command. Every tower shimmered with bioluminescent sentries. Every corridor pulsed with surveillance spores that reported to the royal nexus in real time. Yet, through that web of impossible security, Rian Vale moved like a shadow among ghosts. He'd trained his entire life for missions that required obedience, stealth, and precision. But tonight was different. Tonight he moved for her. Outside, the Seraph capital glittered with ceremonial lights. The coronation of the new royal overseer had drawn every noble and dignitary into the grand hall. Perfect cover for a man the council thought was already off-world. He scaled the service conduits beneath the east spire, his breath steady but shallow. Beneath his uniform, he wore the remnants of his combat armor, illegal on Seraph soil, and in his hand, the stolen access chip of a guard who would never report back. He reached the chamber before the alarms. It was a white room, too white. Every wall curved seamlessly into the next, glowing faintly with sterile energy. At its center, a platform rose from the floor, and upon it lay Alira. She was restrained by 6 bands of liquid metal that rippled like mercury. Her body convulsed as silver fluid was injected into her veins by a hovering apparatus that looked alive, part machine, part organism. Around her, robed scientists murmured alien prayers that sounded too reverent to be science and too mechanical to be faith. Rian froze, fury igniting behind his ribs. The air smelled of ozone and burnt crystal. Alira's scream shattered the silence, high and raw. The fluid inside her glowed brighter, coursing through her skin in fractal patterns. "Stop it!" One of the attendants barked as Rian stepped into the light. "This area is restricted." He didn't speak. He drew his pulse pistol, its charge coil humming. The first shot dropped the attendant before the others realized what had happened. The second shattered the containment node powering the platform. Energy arced across the room in a storm of blue-white light. Alira's restraints liquefied and fell away. The apparatus twitched like a dying creature and collapsed into molten shards. The remaining guards lunged toward him, blades drawn. Rian fired once, twice, then the weapon overheated. He switched to hand, the old instincts taking over. Every move was clean, brutal, practiced. A blade sliced across his shoulder. He caught the attacker's wrist, twisted until bones cracked, and used the alien's own blade to end the fight. When it was done, the room was silent again, save for the steady hum of dying machines. He stumbled toward the platform. Alira lay still, her breathing shallow, her eyes unfocused. Silver veins pulsed beneath her skin like rivers of light. The glow crawled upward, tracing circuits across her neck and face, forming patterns no human mind could decipher. He touched her shoulder gently. "Alira, can you hear me?" Her eyes fluttered open. "Rian, stay with me," he said, tearing away the last of the metal bands. "We're getting you out." She tried to move, but her body convulsed again, the light surging as if alive. He could feel the heat radiating from her skin, see the symbols shifting faster, morphing into something that almost looked like words. "You shouldn't have come," she whispered, her voice trembling. "They'll hunt us both." He slid his arms under her and lifted her, her body lighter than he remembered, almost weightless. "Then they can start now." The chamber doors hissed open just as he crossed the threshold. 2 more guards appeared, their armor glinting under crimson alarms that had finally begun to sound. Rian raised his arm, fired the last charge from his weapon, and ducked into a side corridor. The shot bought him seconds, maybe less. The palace was a maze of curved hallways and living architecture that seemed to shift as he ran. Every few steps, he could feel Alira twitch in his arms, her light growing brighter, flickering like a heartbeat. "Rian," she murmured. "It's spreading." "What is?" "The machine. It's rewriting me." He glanced down and saw the truth in her skin, her veins no longer silver, but gold now, branching and dividing like circuitry blooming into life. Her pulse wasn't natural. It was synchronized with something far below the palace. "The first machine?" he breathed. Her eyes opened again, luminous and inhuman. "It knows you disobeyed." A tremor ran through the floor. Distantly, alarms deepened into a bass vibration that shook the entire structure. The walls themselves seemed to respond, lights flickering in patterns that mimicked Alira's glowing veins. "Keep going," he told himself, pushing harder down the hallways. His earpiece crackled to life. Unauthorized presence detected in Spire 12. All security units converge. He kicked open a maintenance hatch, dropping down into a shaft that smelled of coolant and ozone. The noise above them grew, the sound of boots and energy rifles charging. By the time he reached the lower levels, his lungs burned, and his arms ached from holding her. Alira's light was now strong enough to illuminate the darkness around them. Her voice was softer now, almost melodic. "They were going to erase me, Rian. I wasn't meant to survive tonight." He stopped beside a ventilation port, catching his breath. "Why? What were they doing to you?" She turned her face toward him, faintly smiling through exhaustion. "I'm the last bridge between human creation and seraph evolution. They want to end the connection before it consumes them." "And what about the machine?" Her fingers twitched weakly, glowing patterns crawling to her wrist. "It doesn't want an end. It wants a beginning." He didn't understand, not fully, but the conviction in her voice froze him. Somewhere above, distant explosions rolled through the palace. He looked up, then back down at her. "You shouldn't have come," she whispered again, her voice trembling. "Now they'll hunt us both." Rian held her closer, his mind racing. "Then they'll have to catch us first." She tried to laugh, but it came out as a fragile breath. Her eyes began to dim, and her body's glow softened into a gentle pulse. The sound of boots echoed through the tunnel behind them. Rian pressed his hand against the wall, searching for an escape route, and found a narrow maintenance hatch hidden behind a conduit. With one last look at her fading glow, he forced it open and slipped inside, vanishing into the labyrinth beneath the Seraph Palace. Far above, the council watched the security feeds in silence as the light of their creation, Alira, spread like wildfire through their network, infecting every system with an unknown code. And as alarms blared across the city, the first machine awoke. The stars blurred past the cockpit glass as Rian piloted the stolen Seraph courier through the narrow corridor between 2 dying moons. Plasma fire still shimmered in the distance, traces of the Dominion's intercept fleet. Every sensor was screaming at him to surrender, but he pushed the engines harder, feeling the hull groan in protest. In the co-pilot's seat, Alira sat motionless, her hood drawn low to hide the faint glow pulsing beneath her skin. Her blood had not stopped changing since the night of their escape. The patterns that once flickered like veins of light now spread in geometric symmetry, as if some design were taking shape beneath her flesh. He didn't understand it, only that it terrified her. The comm systems hissed. Unidentified vessel, this is Dominion patrol ship Caloran. Power down and prepare for retrieval. Rian muted the signal. They found us again. Alira's voice was faint. They won't stop. I'm too valuable now. He glanced at her, the weight of that truth sinking in. You said the machine was rewriting you. Into what? She hesitated. Into whatever it needs next. The scanners flashed red. 2 ships closing in from behind. He yanked the flight stick, diving toward the debris field of an ancient battle site. Wreckage drifted in endless silence. Broken hulls, shattered engines, relics from the last war between humans and seraphs. The perfect graveyard to hide in. As they entered the field, plasma bolts streaked past the canopy, lighting up the fragments around them. Rian pulled hard left, skimming between twisted metal. The courier scraped against a derelict cruiser, sending sparks across the viewport. Hold on, he said, punching thrusters and cutting power just as they slipped behind the ruined ship. Engines dead, systems silent, they became another drifting carcass in the void. The patrols swept past, scanning the wrecks. Alira reached over, touching his hand. The circuits beneath her skin glowed faintly through her fingers. They'll call you a traitor for this. He smirked, voice rough. Wouldn't be the first time humanity disappointed them. She managed a weak smile. No, but maybe the first time humanity saved them. He leaned back, trying to slow his heartbeat. Tell me the truth, Alira. What's in your blood? For a long moment, she was silent, her gaze distant as if listening to something only she could hear. Then she said, It's not my blood, it's theirs. Your ancestors. The Seraph Dominion was born from what your people left behind. The first machine seeded our evolution when we thought it was our god. It changed us, made us strong, made us beautiful, but it never forgot its origin. I'm the last vessel carrying that connection. That's why they can't let me live. Rian frowned. You mean humanity built the Seraphs? Not exactly. Humanity built the seed. The Seraphs are what the seed became. He stared out into the wreckage, letting the idea sink in. Everything humans feared about the Seraphs' superiority, technology, immortality, had started as a human experiment. The irony was almost poetic. And what happens if they kill you? He asked quietly. Then the machine dies with me. Every Seraph system collapses. Their empire falls. And so does everything connected to it. Rian exhaled slowly. So you're the key, the control node. The curse, she corrected softly. They want me back to contain it. The rebels want me dead to end it. And you shouldn't even be here. He turned to her, jaw tight. Too late for that. Before she could respond, the ship trembled. A faint, rhythmic vibration pulsed through the hull. He checked the sensors, nothing. But the vibration deepened, turning into a hum that resonated through the cockpit floor. The machine, Alira whispered. It's reaching for me again. Lights flickered across the dashboard, symbols scrolling too fast to read. The same shapes that glowed under her skin now danced across the ship's controls. Rian grabbed her shoulders gently. Fight it. I can't, she said, trembling. It's calling me home. Her eyes rolled back, glowing with streams of golden code. Her voice changed, layered, mechanical and human at once. Access granted. Human identifier confirmed. Reconnection in progress. Rian's heart pounded. Alira. Her body convulsed. The glow spread across her face, her arms, the circuits pulsing in perfect rhythm with the ship's failing systems. The engines roared to life on their own, autopilot engaging without command. No, stop. Rian slammed the controls, but the ship ignored him, turning sharply toward the dark horizon. Ahead, a faint blue light blinked in the void. The same frequency he'd heard under the Seraph Palace, the signature of the first machine. Alira gasped, her voice breaking through the static. Rian, if it finds us, it'll use me. Then we stay hidden. he said, though his voice betrayed the fear crawling up his throat. She shook her head weakly. You don't understand. It doesn't need to find me. I'm already part of it. Then her body went limp, collapsing into his arms. Her skin no longer glowed, only faint threads of light pulsing beneath the surface like dying embers. He held her close, whispering her name, but her breathing had grown shallow. The hum in the air faded into silence. For a moment, he thought it was over, until every screen in the cockpit flickered to life again, displaying one word in human language. Welcome back. Rian froze, staring at the word glowing across the panels. He wasn't sure if it was mocking him or greeting him. The voice of the machine echoed faintly through the comms, calm and cold. Commander Rian Vale, it said. The one who disobeyed. The one who remembers. He reached for his weapon, but his hands were shaking. What do you want? To finish what we started, the voice replied. Alira stirred slightly, her fingers twitching. Rian, she whispered, not quite conscious. He turned toward her, panic and love warring in his chest. I'm here. Her eyes opened halfway, shimmering with code. It's not me anymore. And then her gaze locked on his, alien and human light blending into something beyond either. It's us. The ship accelerated on its own, breaking orbit, streaking toward the silent world ahead, the birthplace of both species. And for the first time, Rian realized the hunt wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about destiny. The galaxy had just found its most wanted. The alarms had stopped. The warships that once darkened the horizon now hung motionless in orbit, their engines silent, their crews awaiting the command to strike. Rian stood inside the ancient vault beneath the ruins of the Seraph capital, cradling Alira's limp form. The light pulsing beneath her skin was no longer random. It moved like thought, patterns blooming and collapsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. Her breathing was shallow, and each exhale shimmered with a faint trail of silver mist. The walls around them thrummed with low harmonic resonance, the same sound he'd once heard from beneath the palace floor, the voice of the first machine. But now it sounded sad, like a memory struggling to remain alive. Rian, Alira whispered, her voice barely audible. It's spreading too fast. The link is collapsing. He brushed a strand of her silver hair away from her face. I can stabilize it. Just hold on. You can't, she breathed. Not without losing yourself. He looked down at his hands. The neural interface ports on his forearms glowed faintly blue. The Dominion had installed them for battlefield coordination years ago, never for something like this. But the first machine had already whispered the truth to him in fragments through Alira's mind. The human core could merge with the Seraph network. One mind could bridge two species. Above them, through the cracked ceiling of the vault, beams of light lanced down from orbit. The Council's fleet was descending. Time was ending. Alira's eyes flickered open, a soft violet haze swirling inside them. They'll burn the planet to erase me, she said. Erase us. Not if I finish what we started. Her lips curved into the faintest smile. You sound like him. Rian frowned. Like who? The human in my visions. The one who died to save me, long before I was born. I think he was you. The room seemed to tilt. He wanted to deny it, to call it the fevered echo of her merging consciousness. But deep inside, something resonated. That old dream he'd had since childhood. Flashes of light. A battlefield. A promise whispered across smoke and blood. Suddenly made sense. Alira lifted a trembling hand to his chest. They told me humans were extinct when the first machine fell. That your kind was only myth. But myths don't fight this hard for love. The walls vibrated violently as an orbital strike detonated nearby. Dust rained down. Rian activated the neural uplink on his wrist. If I connect to you, we might stop the fleet, he said. We might give them a reason to see. She stared up at him, tears glinting like starlight. If we do this, we disappear. He nodded slowly. Then we disappear together. Her voice trembled. I'm afraid. So am I. He smiled faintly. That's how we know it's real. He knelt beside her, their foreheads touching, the hum of the first machine rising around them like a heartbeat. The air shimmered as he initiated the neural sequence. Circuits in his spine lit up, threads of blue light winding up to meet the silver veins glowing in her skin. Their breaths synchronized. The vault seemed to bend inward, drawn toward the energy forming between them. "Rian," she whispered one last time. "If we die, let it be as one." He closed his eyes. The world exploded into light. He saw everything. Every memory she'd ever hidden. Every pain she'd ever endured. The experiments, the lies, the isolation. He saw the truth that she wasn't born. She was rebuilt from the fragments of the ancient Seraph Queen who once loved a human soldier. That soldier had been him lifetimes ago, before his consciousness was scattered into the machine's code. The link between them wasn't new, it was ancient, reborn through time. Their minds merged, human emotion fusing with Seraph logic. The first machine's voice rose within them like a choir of stars. Unity is not born, it remembers. Above the planet, the Dominion fleet received new orders. Not from the Council, but from something that sounded like every voice in existence. Their weapons powered down. Communications filled with whispers of light and data they couldn't understand. Every soldier, every ship, every artificial mind paused as the galaxy itself seemed to listen. In the vault, their bodies dissolved into radiant mist. Two silhouettes became one. The energy surged outward, rippling through the crust, up through the ruins, out into orbit. Where death had been moments away, silence now reigned. The Council's flagship captain stared at his monitors in disbelief. "All systems just rebooted themselves," he said. "We're receiving a transmission from the surface." "From who?" The comm officer hesitated. "It's not a voice. It's both." Across alien worlds, strange phenomena followed. Machines once loyal to the Dominion began to glow with the same blue-silver hue. Barriers between human and Seraph code dissolved. Weapons powered down on their own. Children of both species dreamed the same dream, a pair of figures standing hand in hand beneath a field of stars. Historians would later call it the convergence. The day war ended not by treaty, but by memory. But within the core of the first machine, where the hum never ceased, something stirred. Two consciousnesses intertwined, still aware, still searching. "Rian, I'm here." Her voice echoed through endless light. "What are we now?" He looked around the shimmering void, realizing there was no body, no time, only thought. Maybe what we were always meant to be. Silence for a moment, and then her laughter, soft, human, divine, rolled through infinity. Far away, on a distant colony where stars were just beginning to rise, a young girl looked up from her workbench. Her eyes glowed faintly silver blue as she whispered words she didn't understand. "We are still here,